It is July, and something is wrong with your Japanese maple. The leaves are turning brown at the edges, dry and crispy, curling up like burnt paper. It started at the tips, and it is spreading inward, and your beautiful, delicate, expensive tree suddenly looks like it is dying right in front of you. So, your heart drops, and you get ready to do something about it. And here is what almost nobody tells you. Stop. Because that brown, scorched look, as alarming as it is, very rarely kills a Japanese maple. It is almost always cosmetic. The tree is stressed, not dying. But the panicked things people do in response to it, that is what actually kills the tree. That is the strange truth about Japanese maples in July. The scary-looking problem is usually harmless. And the genuinely deadly problem is invisible, underground, and often caused by trying to fix the harmless one. There are 5 mistakes people make with these trees in the summer heat. And the third one is the one that actually kills the tree. Not the leaves. The whole tree. And the cruelest part is that you often commit it while you are panicking over those brown leaves, trying your hardest to save a tree that only needed you to stay calm. That is mistake number 3. And there is a specific reason it is so deadly and so easy to fall into. By the end of this video, you are going to know exactly how to read what your Japanese maple is telling you. You will know which problems are cosmetic and which are fatal, exactly why each one happens, and exactly what to do, and just as importantly, what not to do. With the watering, the timing, the shade, all of it spelled right out, not vague advice. The real difference between a tree that shrugs off a hard summer and one that quietly dies from good intentions. But before any of it, you have to understand one distinction. Because it is the single idea that separates a scare from a genuine emergency. Let me show you what it is. Here is the one distinction that changes everything with a Japanese maple in summer. You have to learn to tell the difference between a leaf problem and a root problem, because they could not be more different in what they mean for your tree. A leaf problem is almost always cosmetic. Scorched, brown, crispy leaf edges from heat, sun, and wind. It looks terrible. It makes a gorgeous tree look sick and ragged. But here is the truth that every tree expert will tell you. A Japanese maple with scorched leaves is stressed, not dying. The leaves are damaged. The tree is fine. It will drop those leaves in fall and push out perfect new ones next spring, as if nothing ever happened. A root problem is the opposite. It is invisible, it is silent, and it is often fatal. When something goes wrong down in the roots, in the soil, where you cannot see it, that is what actually kills a Japanese maple. And the tree may look almost normal up top until it is already too far gone. So here is the mental filter to carry through this whole video. Damage you can see on the leaves is usually a scare. Trouble down in the roots is the real emergency. And here is the tricky part. The reason mistake number 3 is so deadly. Sometimes a tree with a dying root system shows you symptoms up top that look almost exactly like harmless leaf scorch. So you have to learn to check below, not just react to what you see above. And do me a favor. Drop a comment and tell me 3 things: your state, your zone, and whether your Japanese maple is planted in the ground or growing in a container. Because container trees and in-ground trees face very different summer risks, and your climate decides which of these 5 is coming for you hardest. Now, let's start with the one that scares everyone the most, and reassures you the most. Mistake number 1. Leaving your Japanese maple exposed to the full force of the July sun, heat, and wind, with no protection. This is the scorch we have been talking about, and it is the single most common complaint Japanese maple owners have. brown, crispy, curling leaf edges, worst in the mid to late afternoon sun, worst in a heat wave. Here is the biology. Japanese maples have famously thin, delicate leaves. On a hot, dry, or windy day, those thin leaves lose water to the air faster than the roots can pull it up to replace it. And where the water cannot reach in time, the cells at the leaf edges literally burst and die, and that is the brown, burnt margin you are seeing. And here is a July detail that surprises people. Hot, dry wind is often worse than sun alone. Wind strips moisture from those leaves faster than almost anything else, and south winds in particular can scorch a tree even when the soil is perfectly moist. Now, here is the reassurance, and I mean this. In almost every case, this will not kill your tree. The scorched leaves are a temporary cosmetic condition. The tree is still very much alive, and it will grow a fresh, perfect canopy next spring. So do not panic, and do not do anything drastic. So here is the fix, and it is all about protection. First, shade during the worst of it. Japanese maples want morning sun and some afternoon shade, and if yours is taking hard afternoon or west sun, that is your problem. In a heat wave, you can rig a shade cloth or a piece of fabric to block that harsh afternoon light. Second, mulch. Lay 2 to 3 inches of mulch out to the drip line to keep the roots cool and hold moisture, but keep it pulled back from the trunk so it never touches the bark. Third, wind shelter. A fence, a wall, or other plantings that break those hot summer winds make a real difference. And when a heat wave is coming, soak the tree deeply beforehand so the roots are fully charged. Dial it to your region. This bites hardest in the hot, dry, windy south and the mountain west. In fact, south of Zone 9, the summer heat is simply too much for these trees to take it all. And here is the honest bottom line on scorch. The tree survives, but you prevent the ugly with shade, mulch, and shelter before the heat hits. Now, that word soak, how you actually water this tree, is where mistake number 2 lives. Mistake number 2. Watering your Japanese maple the wrong way in the heat. And there are 2 parts to this, and both feel like you are helping, and both quietly hurt the tree. Watering too shallow, and watering the leaves instead of the roots. Let's take shallow first. In the July heat, it is tempting to walk out every day and give the tree a quick sprinkle around the base. But a light daily splash only wets the top inch of soil, and that trains the roots to stay up near the surface, chasing that shallow water, right where the soil dries out fastest and bakes hottest. So the tree becomes fragile, completely dependent on you, and unable to handle a single hot day you miss. Here is the fix. Deep and infrequent beats, shallow and frequent, every single time. A slow, deep soak drives the roots down where the soil stays cool and moist, and that is what builds a tough, drought-resilient tree. For an established Japanese maple in the ground, that means a deep soak about once a week in hot weather, and more like 2 to 3 times a week for a young tree that is still getting established. Water slowly, at the base, out toward the drip line, so it sinks down deep instead of running off. Now the second part, and this one is specific to these trees, and it is important. Do not water the leaves. I mean it. When you spray water on Japanese maple foliage during the heat of the day, and the sun hits those wet leaves, the water can actually scald and burn them. You are not cooling the tree. You are branding it. So never use an overhead sprinkler that wets the canopy in the daytime. Water at the base with a soaker hose or a wand aimed at the soil. And if you have an automatic sprinkler system anywhere near the tree, set it to run in the early morning so any splashed leaves dry off before the sun gets strong. One critical note for the container growers: a potted Japanese maple dries out dramatically faster than one in the ground, and its soil should never be allowed to dry out completely. In the peak of summer heat, a container tree may genuinely need water every single day. For those, check the soil daily and let the moisture, not the calendar, tell you when. But watering deeply solves one problem and sets up the deadliest one on this entire list, because now we have to talk about what happens when the soil stays too wet. And that is mistake number 3. Now, mistake number 3. This is the one in the title. This is the one that actually kills the tree, not the leaves, the whole tree, roots and all. And here is what makes it so cruel. You very often commit it while you are panicking over the scorched leaves from mistake 1, trying with all your heart to save a tree that only needed shade and patience. Here is exactly how it happens. You see those brown, crispy leaves, and every instinct screams that the tree is thirsty and dying. So you water it, and water it, and water it. And slowly, without ever knowing it, you drown the tree. Let me tell you why that is so deadly, and it comes down to one word that every expert repeats about these trees: well-drained. Japanese maples must have well-drained soil. Here is the biology. Roots do not just need water, they need AIR. There are tiny pockets of oxygen in healthy soil, and the roots breathe through them. When you keep that soil constantly soggy and waterlogged, water fills every one of those air pockets, and the roots suffocate. And in that airless, drowning soil, root rot moves in, a fungal disease, and it turns living roots to mush. And once the roots are gone, the tree is gone. The nursery growers put it bluntly. Regular watering in a poorly drained area leads to root rot and ultimately death. Now here is the trap that makes this mistake so easy to fall into. A tree with rotting, suffocating roots cannot take up water anymore. So the leaves brown and wilt and look scorched. It looks exactly like a thirsty tree. Exactly like mistake 1. So you pour on more water. You are drowning a tree that already has too much. And here is a detail almost nobody knows, and it matters enormously in July. A tree with scorched leaves is not drinking much water. Its damaged leaves have slowed way down, so it needs less water, not more. So when you respond to summer scorch by dumping water on the tree, you are pushing it straight toward root rot. The experts warn it directly. When your tree has scorched leaves, be careful not to overwater it. So here is how you tell the difference, and it settles everything. Before you ever water, check the soil. Push your finger a few inches down into the ground at the base of the tree. If it is genuinely dry down there, then yes, the tree needs a deep soak. But if that soil is damp, or wet, or soggy, then stop. Whatever is wrong, more water is not the answer. A Japanese maple wilting and browning in wet soil is not thirsty. It is drowning, and it is telling you the roots are in trouble. So here is the fix: prevention first. Water only when that soil has actually dried a few inches down, using the finger test every single time, never on a fixed daily schedule. And the foundation of it all is drainage. These trees must never sit in soggy ground or a low spot where water collects. If your soil is heavy clay, plant high. In fact, the rule when you plant a Japanese maple is to set the root ball about 2 inches above the surrounding ground and never bury the crown or the graft where the trunk meets the roots, exactly to prevent this rot. And keep that mulch pulled back off the trunk, because mulch piled against the bark traps moisture and invites the same rot. And the rescue, if you suspect it. Stop watering completely and let the soil dry. Improve the drainage. In a bad case, the tree may need to be lifted and replanted higher, in better draining soil, where the roots are never sitting in water. Here is the honest bottom line. Scorched leaves scare you, but rarely kill the tree. Soggy roots do not look like much until it is too late, and they kill it dead. So when your maple looks stressed in July, do not reach for the hose on instinct. Reach down and feel the soil first. That one habit is the difference between a tree that lives for decades and one you love to death in a single summer. Mistake number 4. Pruning your Japanese maple at the wrong time, in the wrong way, in the middle of summer. And I want to be careful and honest with you here, because the advice online is a genuine mess, with people insisting you must never touch these trees in summer. That is not quite right. Let me give you the real nuance. Light summer pruning is actually fine, and even useful. Once the spring leaves have fully hardened off, you can do some light thinning to open up the tree, and summer pruning even has an advantage. It stimulates less of that frantic regrowth than winter pruning does. So this is not a blanket ban. But here is where people genuinely hurt their trees in July, and it is 3 specific things. First, and most important, the heat itself. Do not prune during a heat wave. When temperatures are up above the mid-80s, pruning a Japanese maple cripples its ability to cool and manage itself, right when it is already fighting to survive the heat. Summer heat, not winter sap, is the real seasonal danger. So if it is brutally hot, put the tools down and wait. Second, sun scald. This one is sneaky and specific to these trees. The bark on the inner branches of a Japanese maple has spent its whole life shaded by the canopy. When you prune away that foliage in summer, you suddenly expose that thin, tender, previously shaded bark to the full strength of the sun, and it burns. It is a real wound, and it can damage the tree. So removing too much foliage in summer does not just risk the leaves, it risks the bark. And third, over-pruning. Whatever the season, never remove more than about 20% of a Japanese maple's canopy in 1 year, and never take a branch more than half the thickness of the stem it grows from. These trees store minimal energy reserves, and cutting too much triggers stress, weak water sprouts, and disease. Remember, a Japanese maple is architecture, not a hedge. You are refining its natural form, not reshaping it. One more thing that matters. Always use clean tools. Dip your pruners in a 10% bleach solution before you start, because dirty blades spread disease straight into fresh cuts, and Japanese maples are vulnerable to exactly those fungal infections. So here is the honest rule for July, if you take nothing else. Save any real structural pruning for the dormant season, late winter. And in the summer heat, limit yourself to removing dead or broken wood, unless you really know what you are doing and the weather is mild. When in doubt in July, dead wood only. Now, the last mistake is one more well-meaning thing people do in the heat that backfires badly, and it is about feeding. Mistake number 5. Fertilizing your Japanese maple in the heat of summer. Your tree looks stressed and scorched, so your instinct is to feed it, to give it a boost, to nurse it back to health. And in July, that feeding can burn the very tree you are trying to save. Here is the biology, and it is genuinely surprising. Fertilizer is made of mineral salts. When you feed a tree in hot weather, those concentrated salts build up in the soil. And here is the trap. Even if the soil around the tree is nice and moist, that moisture actually activates the fertilizer, and the tree cannot control how much it draws up. So it pulls in too much, and the salts burn the leaves from the inside, giving you the exact brown, scorched edges you were trying to cure. High nitrogen fertilizers, the strong chemical ones, are the worst offenders for this. So here is the fix, and it is mostly about restraint. Do not fertilize a Japanese maple in the summer heat. Full stop. These trees need very little feeding to begin with. In fact, too much fertilizer makes them leggy, weak, and more prone to problems. If you feed at all, do it once in early spring, before the new growth appears, with a gentle, slow-release fertilizer made for acid-loving plants, the same kind you would use for azaleas or rhododendrons. Never a summer rescue dose. Now, one honest word on pests, since July is when they show up. Heat-stressed trees do attract spider mites and aphids, so it is worth a look. But here is the thing to remember, and it ties this whole video together. Most of what looks like disease on a Japanese maple is actually environmental stress, not an infection. So before you reach for a chemical spray, fix the environment first: the shade, the water, the drainage. And know that Japanese maples are genuinely sensitive to many chemical sprays, so those should be a last resort, used carefully, not a first reaction. So a stressed Japanese maple in July does not need more from you. It needs less. And that is really the whole lesson of this video. Let me pull it together. Before we finish, do one thing for me. Think of one person you know with a beautiful Japanese maple that browns and struggles every summer, someone who panics over those leaves every July. Send them this video. Just the link. It might save them a tree and a lot of worry. Now let me pull all 5 together, because they are not really 5 separate rules. They are 3 disciplines, and every one of them comes back to the single idea we started with. In the July heat, your Japanese maple mostly needs you to stay calm and do less. The first discipline is reading the tree correctly. That is the whole distinction from the start. Damage on the leaves is almost always a cosmetic scare. Trouble in the roots is the real emergency. Learn to tell them apart and check the soil before you ever react to what you see up top. The second discipline is watering right. That is mistakes 2 and 3. Deep soaks at the base, never on the leaves, and only when the soil has actually dried down a few inches. Never let it sit soggy, because the wrong watering is what kills these trees, and it kills them by drowning, not by drought. The third discipline is restraint. That is mistakes 1, 4, and 5. Give the tree shade and shelter from the heat, but do not attack it. No hard pruning in the heat. No fertilizer in the heat. In July, the kindest thing you can do for a stressed Japanese maple is protect it, and otherwise leave it alone. Read it right, water it right, and hold back. Do those 3, and your maple walks out of summer alive and ready to blaze into fall color. And listen, a Japanese maple is not a shrub you replace. It is a specimen tree, a living sculpture, the elegant centerpiece of a whole garden. These trees live for decades, often longer than the person who planted them. The one in your yard could be the tree your grandchildren remember, turning fire red every October long after. That is worth staying calm for. That is worth getting right. So subscribe and stick around. We do this the honest way here in the Forgotten Knowledge Library. Real horticulture, exact amounts, and we tell you straight when something is just a myth, even the popular ones. It is free and it always will be. Next time, another plant, another set of summer mistakes. What actually works, and what people swear by that simply does not. Now go out to your Japanese maple, and before you reach for the hose, reach down and feel the soil. I will see you in the next one.